Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dave. I'm the head of special projects for mobilemusthave.com. And with us today, we have the entire Murphy family. I think
Yeah,
the entire family. Well, I guess there's no pets in the photo, but I'm sure they're close by, right?
They are.
they're in the other room, so less distracting.
Yeah, nope, that's a good plan. That's a good plan. So we have Andy and Chris Murphy, and then we have Kensler, Killian, and Keegan, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah, that's
yep.
right.
Very good. That's a lot of K names, which I really appreciate. So can let's start by talking a little bit about how well, one, just give us a little background. Like how long have you guys been on the road at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like higher level is we just want to talk about kind of traveling with a big family on this live kind of a little must-have here. So Dave brought up to me that it would be a good idea to kind of just come on as the group I live with,
Mhm.
talking about being full time on the road and what that experience has been. So yeah, so we left Dallas in 2018. We sold our house and kind of went full in. We left a little bit of stuff in storage, like wedding stuff and things that weren't necessarily worth anything to anyone else, but kept a little bit. And sold everything else. So we don't have anything to really go home to per se. And I've been traveling around since then, just kind of going to different places and making different circles. We kind of end up back in Dallas for some reason with doctors or family or whatever, but
Yeah.
kind of do like little circles out and kind of come back at certain times.
Now, what made you make that switch from
So
sort
this
of
was before,
traditional
yeah,
Texas
this
living?
this was before mobile must have, right? Because this was in 18 and we all kind of started at 19. So at that time I had a software job as a product manager that had gone remote in 17, 18. So I had been remote for almost a year. And I remember we were like looking around, like, why are we sitting in Dallas when we have so many other places we can be? And I can be working from anywhere. And I'm choosing to live in, and we were in an area that just had a ton of traffic. It was like underdeveloped. So there were just challenges like every day, just like doing basic things. And we are like, why are we here? We don't have to live in this zip code anymore. So that was kind of the beginning. And then we decided to buy an RV just to enjoy travel more.
Yeah, I really the whole RV thing in 2017 for us was really just to go on vacations and, long weekend trips and Kensler was rather little. He was still in
Three.
preschool
Yeah.
and Keegan had just started homeschooling. So for other reasons other than going full time. And yeah, so we were like, let's just try it. We had a couple of friends that Keegan went to school with that were living in their RV, but raved highly about it. So we're like, well, and Andy's done it too growing up. So we're like, well, let's just give it a try. So we purchased our first RV in 2017 and just did
Week
quick little trips.
weekend stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we did one big trip for the solar eclipse that was in the summer of 17.
Hmm.
I think it was
Okay,
a big
yeah.
one that a lot of people remember. We did an RV trip that was like 2 day drive, and we were driving
Yeah.
home from this amazing trip. And we're like, why are we driving home? My laptop's in the back, and he's homeschooled, and we were going back because Kensler had been signed up for preschool, and we were like, okay, we do not need to be heading home for this. We already have everything we need on us. So that was kind of where the idea of like let's just do this for a while.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just test it out.
Hmm.
We didn't buy the RV initially to go full time. We just did it for those weekend trips and it happened to just kind of fall into our
Yeah,
laps.
slowly
And
evolve into it.
yeah.
Hmm.
Very cool. I mean, so I can completely respect that feeling because every time that I've ever sailed anywhere long distance, when you get used to being like on the road and sort of in motion, the first reaction is to just keep going. And you
Hmm.
Yeah.
guys actually
Hmm.
did that,
Hmm.
which is incredible.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So,
So yeah, we started out when we first went full time, we were like, let's just give it 6 months and we should know pretty quickly whether we like it or we
Well, we
don't.
we also
So
knew there would be challenges in the beginning. So by really fully committing and saying we're not having this conversation for 6 months forced
Yeah.
us to kind of go through some of the lower, like, oh my God, we were crazy. I can't believe we did this too. Experiencing then the highs too of like, look at all the cool places we've been.
Yeah,
So then in 6 months, we were like, okay, are we buying another house or are we
continuing.
continuing? So then it was, yeah, it just allowed us to revisit at a certain point.
But like
Now,
you said,
are you still on the 6 month? Like every 6 months, you decide whether you're going to keep going or not, or
no, but we revisit, like lately over the last couple of years, we've been revisiting on our what we call a nomadiversary,
Mhm.
and that happens in May of every year. So we kind
Yep.
of do a reassessment in May and make sure everybody's doing okay, that we're all kind of on the same page, or maybe we're not on the same page, and we have those open conversations. And we like to keep the kids involved in that,
Yeah, the priorities
and
change.
yeah, and keep
Mhm.
their opinions are valued to us. So we revisit that every May of the last couple of years, and just to make sure that this is something we want to do, or maybe it's not. Maybe things need to take a turn, and maybe the kids want to do something else. And
Well, and it was like over the pandemic, it was definitely not getting a house. That like pandemic life was not good in the house. We were able to travel to Maine and stay on the beaches and, still be safe, but, be able to have, I would say, a much better experience than I think most people had in, city state quarantine. So it was easy to renew, for those 2 years or so. And then we just went through a big decision. Did we want to continue or not? And we looked at houses and we were in Dallas at the time. We're like, yeah, this is not where we want to be spending our money.
yeah, I can empathize with that.
Yeah.
What are some of the unexpected challenges that you thought that you run into that you ran into that you didn't even think you would run into?
That's a good question.
it's a really good question.
Unforeseen challenges. I think there's the foreseen ones that actually are less of an issue. Like getting mail has been pretty easy. Having stuff shipped to us from Amazon, like campgrounds get all of that. So,
I think
unforeseen though.
one that we can put in there is kind of doing the maintenance, not routine maintenance for the RV, but when we've had some bigger things that need to be dealt with, like from a dealer or from a service shop, navigating how to get that done when you live in your RV,
That's challenging.
and your RV has to go into the shop, so you have to remove yourself from the RV. And when you have pets and small kids, like that can be really challenging, especially when you're trying to figure out when your RV can actually go in for service, and managing all of that hotel stays or Airbnbs, and that has been a challenge. It's not impossible. We've done it. But
it takes a lot of coordinating.
It does. There's a lot
Service
of
centers
logistics.
are designed for you to sit there, drop it off, and they'll get to it when they get to it. So for it to be drop off and worked on that day, you just have to be very transparent.
And there are mobile techs that can come out to the RV. We've had those as well. But for those bigger issues that the mobile techs can't do, then that's where those logistical, unforeseen opportunities that you're like, oh my gosh, how do we do this in such a quick and timely manner so Andy can keep working and we can keep doing school if we need to, and managing all of that. I'd say that's one of the biggest unforeseen challenges that you just don't think about until you're actually in it and doing
it's
it.
also impossible to plan for in most cases, because like we had a suspension go out and it was just like, okay, this is what we're doing today now. Yeah.
This is what this week has now become, is dealing because
and it literally was.
I mean,
It was 5
and
days.
that makes sense. I mean, you think about it, your house and your vehicle are now essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
You have all of the challenges of maintaining a home, but all of the challenges of maintaining a large vehicle at the same time. I mean,
right.
Yeah, it's very similar to a boat in that aspect. I mean, it's 60 feet and it's going through a lot of different storms and weather and types of travel. So so you've got to take care of it
and you can prepare as
and a
much
ton
as
of road
possible.
miles.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
how far, like at this point, how many laps around the country do you guys think you've made?
Oh my gosh.
We've done a full circle at least once. The West Coast was over 20, so that was hard with California and letting people in. So when we were over there, we've done the East Coast now 3 times.
Yeah.
Midwest 2 or 3 times.
We usually do them in segments.
We've done half of Florida because we keep getting rushed out from hurricanes.
or other events that come up.
Yeah, done the Southwest a couple times. So yeah, just kind of weather. We haven't done Canada as much as we wanted to because I was all over 21 and 20 when we had that scheduled and the border was closed. But so yeah, definitely more to do. There's always more to see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, where's next? I know you're in the Northeast right now, just because I can tell it's just as dark there as it is here.
Yeah, we're in Connecticut now. Next is going to be. Oh, baby's got the camera. Next is going. We're actually moving.
It's not an
down
earthquake,
towards,
folks. It's just
we're moving to like the southeast for the winter. Probably going to be around like somewhere in Tennessee. Is kind of what we're thinking. Can't touch it. Can't touch it. You want to come sit? Nope, no sitting. All right, it's fine too. Yeah, so probably like Tennessee for the winter. We've been debating a lot on the Tampa like RV show, which is popular for a lot of people if they're looking for RVs.
Mommy's gonna put it on.
But yeah, I don't know. And really, we're debating what to do next summer. That's kind of like that's the big thing. You got to plan the summers ahead. That's what books up really quickly and takes the most amount of planning.
We should talk about what's it like to I mean, it sounds like you guys were homeschooling before moving to the RV, so I guess that transition was a little bit easier. But what's that like? I mean, you're now in charge of homework and everything else. So
yeah, so when it's so funny. It's so funny. Sorry, the baby.
No, it's okay.
It has been an involvement. So, with the kids being on the road for so long, we really went from elementary ages and now we have teenagers. So it does have its challenges, but we homeschool out of a state that is relatively easy. We don't have state testing or anything like that, where some states do. And I know for some full-time families that we know, they are home based out of states that they have to go back and do state testing every year. Fortunately we don't. Being out of Texas, we don't have that, but it's fun because we can really base our schooling off of where we're going. And when we are in those places, they are interactive, it is immersive, and the kids latch on and they hold on to that for a while. And so it's been fun as we circle back through places where they're like, I remember talking about this, or I remember learning about this, or when we came back through, we hadn't talked about this yet, but now being back through again, this, now I can see what we learned about, that tide pooling experience, or those rock formations. Like we really try to tie in school as much as possible to where we are. So it makes it relevant for the kids and it gets them excited too. And that has been, I think when we do it that way, it really gets them involved.
A lot of people call it road schooling because you're able to school by going places and by traveling. And so it's not really a traditional homeschool. It's schooling based on location and what's available and learning not just the math and the social studies and that stuff, but you get to learn about the regions you're in and the nature of it, the history of the area, and then you get to experience it firsthand in a lot of cases.
Yeah. I mean, I remember as a kid growing up in New England, I mean, it was pretty easy to study the Revolutionary War because it was all here.
Right.
Whereas if that's an abstract concept that's somewhere else, it's a very different experience to learning anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Andy was in Boston last week. Did you guys get a chance to check out any of the Revolutionary War stuff?
The Boston Tea Party
Museum. That was
a popular one.
It was a lot of fun, and then we all sat there and tasted the tea that was on the boats that I mean, not the exact tea, but the type of tea that then they were, throwing overboard. And it was, they talked about the treason they might have been, doing, and the secrecy they all had to, go amongst themselves and say. So yeah, that's the whole history side that we get to just experience. And
Whoops.
it's, doing it from learning that from Dallas, where we both went to school, it was just this faraway place where something happened on a boat. And not being landlocked people, it's just a story to us.
It just brings it to life.
So seeing it is definitely something else.
Yeah.
Even for us.
Yeah, we learn a lot too.
Yeah.
We learn a lot with them.
I think travel in general is so important to giving perspective to not just education, but life in general, and seeing that there's more than one way to live and be around other people, and I think it gives you a much more open mind towards how different how different groups sort of figure out where they are.
Yeah.
Is he rewiring the RV now? Is he reprogramming
got
the internet now? Or?
There's an Alexa back there, so he's sitting there, and who knows what's going to be turning on.
We've entered this high-pitched squeaky phase, and that's been only over the last week, so that's been super fun.
But I have two nephews and one niece, and what's amazing is even seeing them a couple months apart at a time, how much they evolve and change. It's really funny.
So fast, yeah.
And I think he's playing it up for the camera too. So
he loves the camera.
So, if of all the places you've been, and maybe this is a question for Keegan and Kensler, but what have they really enjoyed, and have they gone off and disappeared and moved on to other stuff?
Yeah,
or
they kind of
lost their interest. But I'd say what we always circle back to is the national parks.
We do, yeah.
I have been to a lot before this family was created. But Kristen, when we left, was like, I don't understand why the national parks are so important.
It's true.
She's like, I just don't get it.
I don't get it.
And
because there weren't any in Texas. I mean, there's some historical sites.
There's one that's 10 hours from where we live. So
but there's the national parks in Texas. So it's like, well, what's the big deal?
And I will say the national parks are always if we do a couple over the year, those are the memories we talk about. Those are the weekends we remember, are the hikes that are the highlight. We've been to 60 something national park service places. So there could be historical parks or monuments or something.
Yeah.
We've been to how many actual national parks?
30.
30
out of the 63 national parks.
So
wow.
We're getting closer, and we've done some a couple times.
Yeah, we have. We've circled back to a few.
And just all of them are always just amazing to see, and different, from deserts to trees to oceans to mountain tops. Yeah, it's just, they're always incredible.
Now, what's I gotta ask? What's your favorite one? We won't do the match game thing where you both put up separate answers to see if they match.
We often go back and forth with this question because it's a pretty common question, and it's hard to pick just one.
Hard. Yeah.
And actually, the kids tried to quiz us the other day where they're like, "So if you had to pick your top 3, which ones would it be?" And I think Andy and I both have different answers. So Andy, you should go. What's your top?
I have to say the one that was just the most mind blowing to me was the redwoods in Northern California. It's just those trees just put you in a different perspective of scale. They're like hundreds of feet tall, huge bases. You just feel like what an ant feels like, I think, in real life. Now, I mean, we've been to Yellowstone and Arcadia. We've been to all of them, and they're amazing. But yeah, I think that one to me was just like, I cannot believe I'm standing here in this forest. Yeah. You feel like you were back in like dinosaur times with all the ferns and huge trees. It was just transports you.
It really does. It's a different place.
What's yours?
So mine is still on the same coast, but further north, and that's Olympic National Park. And Olympic, I think, is really great because it offers just
You have everything.
great biodiversity.
Yeah.
And you have the mountains, but you have the ocean, and you've got the trees and the hikes, and
There's a rainforest there.
there is the rainforest there. And I mean, just that park alone is such a unique experience in and of itself, as they all are. But that one, I think, just offers the biodiversity that not
Yeah.
all of the parks can offer. So
That's a good point. Yeah, that one is a good one.
yeah, I really like that one.
So getting to a little more serious topic, what are the communication challenges? Like, how do you guys manage? I mean, I live in a city with lots of people around, but I can still sort of get away from everyone and go hide when I need to. How do you manage that day to day as far as just
Yeah, it was
communicating?
something very important I outlined in 18 of like, okay, I'm working a normal like remote computer job. So I'm doing even back then Microsoft Teams, Slack, all the main communication channels,
You're
and
still
I'm
on calls
still on a
and,
lot of calls.
conference
You know, and
calls.
it was 18, so it was more or less modern times like we're used to. LTE was pretty popular and normal in cars at that point, and most cars had turned off 3G and gone LTE. So that was there, but the technology was not there. Like you really only had your phone that connected pretty well. And I remember doing a lot of research and actually coming across Eric's video before mobile must have was a thing. So I had gone that route for connectivity. And so for us, our goal was, one, I needed to stay connected. Two, we have kids, even back then, 9 and a 3-year-old that were used to streaming. The other day, Kenzer, we got a new TV. Kenzer didn't even know what the channel up and channel down button was for because they stream everything. I mean, like, so that's the world they're in, right? So they're not used to like
Yep.
TVs with channels.
What is a channel?
They go to Netflix and turn on the show they want. So that hurt. That comment hurt a lot. But so that's the connectivity. It was YouTube TV. And so that all had to work across everyone's devices and everything.
Yeah, but to come back to the communication thing, as far as the family is concerned, that was part of that 6-month trial. Are we all going to work together in a small space?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And at the time, we were in a 32-foot Class C that had no doors, so you couldn't just get away. So you're like, the best door that you had was a pocket door, and we all know pocket doors just aren't. They're just not doors.
It's not the same thing.
So with Andy working, we did have to say, okay, kids, this is what we're doing. And sometimes that meant that we were outside and playing, because when they're so little, play is still very much a part of their learning.
Oh yeah.
So doing that and getting them outside too, especially being in a small space, you're like, let's go outside. Let's go find something to do.
Outside was also always different.
It was always different.
I mean, every week is somewhere new. So that's it's a very easy
comment. But drawing those boundaries and really setting those expectations within the family was really a big part of when we started. And that has evolved as we've moved into this RV. The first thing Andy's like, I need a room with a door. And so we have the toy hauler. The toy hauler has a great door. So he takes all of his calls back there. He can close the door. It gets pretty quiet. And so that works now. No pocket doors. But we try to keep pretty open communication. So if things aren't working, we try to communicate it.
Any relationship without good communication, really.
Yeah, it really is. Mm-hmm. And I know not everybody gets along with their family. I've heard that from a lot of our friends that are like, I don't know how you do it, because I couldn't be in that close of proximity with my family that often. So, but I think over time we also just accepted the lifestyle, and the kids have grown into the lifestyle. And I think that does play a difference versus being maybe forced into the lifestyle, maybe for work reasons or other reasons.
Having a choice is different than it being told against you. Yeah.
I was going to say, so when you were first deciding to go on the road, they were part of they had a vote in that decision-making process too, then.
Well, I mean,
less than, because they were like 5, well,
I mean,
7 and
Keegan had
4.
somewhat of a vote. And we kept that communication very open. This is what our plan is. What do you think about this? And I remember having that conversation with Keegan and him being like, well, my friend, that's what their family did. And we're like, yeah. And he was like, is it because of them? I was like, no, it just happened that we, with all of this stuff, but so we do try to keep that open, and we're very, we try to be, we try to keep them involved. So as
Mhm.
much as we want their opinion, sometimes it's hard to get that. And,
Mhm.
we do make decisions that we need to make. It's not always based on what they think, but they do get a vote, here and
Mhm.
there for
Mhm.
many things.
Preaching.
Do they get a vote as to what destination is next, or is
Yeah.
that sort of
Yeah, they kind of do, and they also get a vote, like especially in places that we go back to. They often will be like, "Can we go do this again?" Or I heard that this. Oh, I read Keegan's big thing is I read about this place when we're in the area. Can we go?
Yeah.
So we try to make sure that those things are penciled in, and
We will have a bigger conversation about where we're going over the next like 12 months. And then I'll figure out kind of more the specific route, and then they figure out the activities in that place.
yeah.
Oh wow, that's great. Have they what's an example of like a hidden something they've found that you didn't even maybe not weren't even aware of when you headed to an area?
Oh my gosh, I think
I when we were in Flagstaff,
that's what I was
I would
gonna say
not have
too. Yeah.
looked this up, but when we were in Flagstaff, Arizona, it sounds like it's part of the desert, but it's actually high up on the mountains. So your
Okay.
elevation is you're at very high elevation. It's snowing, it's very cold. Um, Back when the Grand Canyon was being discovered and highly touristed, there was a scientist that came out, I think his name was Lowell, right?
Hmm.
And he created an observatory that's out there. And it was one of the first big observatories. It's actually where they mapped out
The
the
moon.
moon for all the Apollo missions. So they have
Mm.
massive telescopes that you can still use, that are still being used today. They still have astronomers on
It's a
payroll there.
working
And yes,
observatory.
so we got to, so we, yeah, and they also discovered Pluto at that particular observatory. So I would not have looked this up had I not had the kids saying I want to like look up space stuff. But we went, and it was absolutely one of the coolest places we've come across.
So our kids are big into space. Keegan's he's very big into space, like so much that that's what he wants to do as a career. And
I
then
noticed the
um
Artemis shirt.
yeah,
Mhm.
and then Kensler is big into dinosaurs and paleontology. So in those places, another place would be Casper,
Mm,
Wyoming, which is there's not a lot happening in Casper, but there is this really awesome museum that they have on I think it's the college campus
yeah,
there.
I think so.
And there they have the first, I think it was the first Triceratops that was discovered. There's the skull
Wow.
of the Triceratops. And they had a huge mammoth that was discovered. And they had this really awesome museum curator who took the kids, like we were listening, but the kids just soaked in. That just raved, and the tour that they got was so elaborate and exactly what they needed. And Kensler was just like, I want to come work here when I grow up. So as the dinosaur kid that he is, so
It was really cool. And they had a
those
big woolly mammoth that they had
yeah.
found very nearby and stuff.
But so like
Yeah.
those places, those are the kinds of things that the kids tend to be like, oh, can we go here? This looks really interesting. So fun opportunities.
Are we hitting up the goldfish there? Is that what that is?
We are.
Attempting to keep his mouth busy.
Yeah, it's too good. We're not sponsored by Goldfish, but we'd be happily sponsored by Pepperidge Farm. Thank you very much. They're a great company, but not a sponsor, not an ad, but still. Um, the snack
Listen,
food of all snack foods, right?
Right.
especially when you're, under the age of 5.
Yeah, no, perfect, perfect. Um, So with homeschool, I just want to go back to homeschooling a little bit. Is there, with even with the state not having sort of testing, is there do they give you guidelines or certain things that you
It,
have to check off as far as milestones, or how does that work?
so each state is different,
Each state is very different.
very different. And there
With
are
all things, not
yeah,
just homeschooling.
and there's an organization out there called HSLDA that is very well known across many of the full-time families. And they do a lot of the homeschool laws. So um, when anybody is starting to think about homeschooling and traveling,
Mm,
that's kind of the place to go for making sure that you are on track and doing exactly what you need to be doing, because some states you've got to let them know that you're homeschooling. Some you have to establish yourself as a private school. Some do have subject requirements. Most have subject requirements. It depends on how many and what they are. So you can make sure that you're homeschooling like that, in that what you're teaching is very much in line with those requirements. And then some have state testing and some don't. So um, it's just really important to know where you are based out of, like what you call home, where your car
Domicile.
is registered, where you are registered to vote. That's typically your domicile. And so your homeschool is based on your domicile state. Um, and making sure that you are well aware of the parameters, and how long you can typically stay in a state before you have to start um, looking at that state's
Regulations or rules. Yeah.
homeschool laws. So
oh,
there's a lot
interesting.
that goes into it, but that the HSLDA organization, they are great at outlining everything you need to know for that,
Hmm.
and making sure that you don't fall into the cracks or get yourself in a hairy situation.
Yeah,
But yeah.
yeah, and then as the kid, so your oldest has got to be getting sort of close to looking at colleges and stuff, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
he just started freshman year this year. So
okay.
High school.
we are of high school. And so yeah, we're definitely talking colleges, universities, if that's something he wants to do. We are very much in the belief that he can go and do whatever he wants. So if he wants to take a gap year, he certainly can. If he wants to go right into college or university, he can do that too. But kind of making sure that he knows what his options are, which is kind of overwhelming when you're a freshman in high school. So but that has been a big conversation for us this year as far
We're
as
also,
homeschooling is.
I mean, just from a homeschooling standpoint, seeing a huge turn the last 5 years in what colleges are looking for and how
Oh,
they're actually looking more for homeschooled like students, because they're not just taught for a test. They're taught,
yep,
they typically show big independent thinking and different exterior curricular activities than, what standard student would have. So some aren't even looking at standardized tests to get in necessarily. They'll either
Right.
be doing knowledge-based tests or standard admission essays, stuff like that,
Or an interview.
or interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep. Well, and I think at the end of the day, the standardized test model was one that I think everyone figured out is not quite the great perspective that it might have been,
Right.
especially when the schools sort of, I don't want to get too crazy into that world, but
Sorry.
I totally, I'm just laughing. Is he taking apart the goldfish box at this point, or?
His whole hand can fit
His whole
inside
hand
the
is
box.
inside, and it's the ginormous size one. So if it's not managed, it will all be on the floor.
Yep. No, I respect that for sure. Do you guys have the whole home vacuum system that just
We
can suck
do.
up the whole? It's
Hmm.
very
We do.
important, I would imagine.
Hmm.
We also have a vacuum mop that helps with all of the other messes. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
The good news is you also have a house that has a hose attached to the outside of it, so you can, if they get really dirty, you just take them
I
outside
mean,
and
it
hose them
really,
off.
the dog does most of the work. I mean, if we're honest here,
She does.
just let the dog in. She does most of the cleanup.
It's excellent. Excellent. So how many, so you have the three kids, the two of you, and then a dog and a cat, or
Yep.
Yeah.
okay.
hmm
Yep.
hmm We're in a 45-foot toy hauler, so it's quite a bit of square feet compared to most.
Yep.
I think we're at about 350 square feet when I measured it. With slides and stuff, it gets weird, but yeah. So we have a standard, like where the normal, if someone's used to a fifth wheel, they've got the bedroom up over where the truck part is. We've actually converted that to the bunkhouse. Then we're in the main living space here, and then in the garage where my office is, we talked about earlier, we've actually made our bedroom. So
Mhm.
that way we have a bigger space than the dark kind of closet up there that the kids are in.
So the bunkhouse, meaning all the kids sort of live up in the front of the.
Yeah, I mean Killian's still in
The
the
big
back with
kids,
us,
the
so the
big
big
kids
kids
live
are
up
up there.
there.
But yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Killian's in transition, so he's now 18 months. So he's starting to work his way up with the big kids.
Up to the big kid room.
So,
Yeah.
which is, I think,
Yep.
ultimately where he really wants to be. He doesn't want to be with mom and dad. He wants to be with the brothers. So we're starting. I mean, like he's in there more than he has been. So
You have so many. You have so many out already. Let's eat. Let's eat all of these.
But the ones in the box taste better.
Sure do.
I love it. Absolutely too funny.
Yeah, eat that.
Well, I do trying to think where with the kids and being such different age groups too, is it hard to manage sort of the lesson plans and teaching that way too, or
So, how I tackle it personally, what works best for our family because of the age group differences, we have some subjects like language arts and math and sometimes foreign language that are really more individual learning. And then we have other subjects like the sciences and social studies and
History.
yeah, all of that
Mhm.
that we do more as family learning. And
okay.
we I can scale up or scale down accordingly, and that seems to work really well for us. Now, I know that doesn't work for everybody, but for us it does. Considering the age group. Now, with Keegan being in high school, that has thrown a little bit of a wrench in our gears for that kind of style of learning, but he has really always been an independent learner by nature, and does a lot of, it's more of an unschooling approach for what Keegan does because he can take a subject like his latest thing is chemistry and just dives into the chemistry or dives into physics or dives into whatever that is. So I have touch points with him for things like that. So we reassess every year. Some things work and some things don't. So keeping it keeping it good for both the high schooler and the elementary. I mean, they are so different, but yet there are some subjects where we can combine them and it makes sense for everybody to learn kind of on the same level.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you do the chemistry lab outside so that the RV doesn't get blown up, or
Yes.
Absolutely. But it's interesting things like we sell water softeners. I'm not trying to plug anything here, but there's the whole recharge process of
yep.
like you, and so instead of that just being some weird thing dad bought for the house, we talk about why salt is what you use to recharge, what the chemistry is behind that. And then we get to learn how water softeners work that, I didn't know honestly until we were looking it up just, with him.
Yep.
When he's like, oh well, the salt and does this, and then it's got different ions, and he's actually probably more in the know about this stuff than I am now. But we get to, so that's just how we do a lot of things. It's just what are we doing? What are we learning? What are we
A lot of it comes from just living
day-to-day stuff?
and learning, from living. So
Yeah. Why do we need to know this stuff? Why does anybody need to know this? And
or like
dig into
our battery in the car or the truck was giving us a hard time, and so Keegan was out there helping Andy you know, with the jumper cables and making sure that it was on the right side, and like learning all of those skills, you know, those things that you don't necessarily learn in school. Those are also what we're focused
And
on.
then learn that the battery is filled with lead and sulfuric acid, I think. And so that's why they're so heavy, because they're literally heavier than water, those elements. You know, so he
Yeah.
was like learning all of that, and he's like, "Yeah, it's a heavy battery."
Oh man,
Lead
just
acid.
to move those things around, my shoulders start hurting thinking about it. But you know,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think that kind of practical education is so important, though, too, in the sense that they're gonna walk into the world with a real world experience. The question is,
Yeah.
I guess, when they go to college, are they gonna move? Are you gonna get them a van to live on campus at
Right.
college? If they go to college, or
That they'll probably be more comfortable than that. Although dorm life is kind of what they are used to now. So
It kind of
yeah,
is.
it's true. Yeah, they're actually probably better prepared for that than most from that
Yeah.
standpoint.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's a mix for like the socialization side is, you know, sending them to summer camps where they get to kind of toe step into life without mom and dad being there.
Yeah.
And then that is the challenge too, is just having not us do everything for them. So, you know, having programs with remote teachers when possible, or spending weeks with grandparents or friends. So they get other experiences.
Hmm.
That's phenomenal. Um, I always the subjects that made the most sense to me were the ones that I got to interact with, and I think
Hmm.
when you got to I think it was really high school when you started to do labs and
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that,
Hmm.
especially with the sciences. I mean, the difference of seeing it practical, like watching my teacher, Mr. Knight, take a cube of sodium and throw it into a bucket of water and blow up
Yeah.
the ceiling tiles in our chemistry lab class was a visceral experience as to what a chemical reaction was. A lot better than just reading about it in a book.
Right.
So
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
I, I
Yeah.
are there scorch marks on the outside of the RV at this point from the chem?
No,
Not
not
yet.
quite.
Trying to think if there's any holes that have disintegrated from other things, though. I
I
think
don't
there
think
is, but
so.
not that I can remember off the top of my head.
But I mean, I can imagine that you've had the chance. Have you had a chance to go like watch a rocket launch or anything like that as an example? Or
We
So
were trying to do the rocket launch specifically. We've done the solar eclipse. We've chased those a little bit.
yep,
Um, we've done Disney in the wintertime because you can just not take off work or not take off school and go to Disney, you know, because you're right there and you can take your house with you. Um, we've done,
we do a lot of museums too.
yeah,
Not necessarily like children's museums anymore because the kids are so much older, but like the science museums,
the
and the
Smithsonian's.
tech museums, Smithsonian museums when we're in DC. I mean, there's a lot of learning opportunities, especially as we travel. Those are typically the first things that we look for outside of the parks, are museums and
So many.
stuff.
I mean, the national
Yeah.
parks. We've done like Lincoln's birthplace. To I don't know. What are some of the other random ones?
Well, we
Devil's
went,
Tower.
yeah, and we went up to like Acadia, and they had not in the park, but like in Bar Harbor, they had part of one of the colleges up there. The Rangers did like a whole tide
Mm.
pooling like demonstration. And so it was like a mini version of what you would find out in the real tide pools, which then we did later, but it was like a whole educational thing of like, here's the different creatures that you can find, and here's why they behave the way they do when the tide goes out and versus when the tide is in. And you know, so there's that kind of science, that kind of natural history that they learn too. And that kind of stuff is all over, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So even at the observatory that Andy was talking about earlier in Flagstaff, they do those science demonstrations, like what you were talking about, the explosives, and talking about, you know, when rockets go into space, this is the combustion that happens in a smaller scale version, but here's what happens. So there's a lot of that too that is out there that we consider part of school. Even if it's not here in the RVs, it's still learning. So
Well, what a great way to keep them engaged in all of the subjects. I mean, I go back to that same concept of practical knowledge over everything. I think that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
What's been a challenge? What's been a subject that's been really difficult to teach? Besides anyone that they're not interested in, but
right.
I mean, the upper versions of math, I would put on my I just can't help you anymore.
The trigonometry and the calculus and the all of that. We outsource the tutoring on that. So
it's passed to the, because they come up with like I can't figure out this problem, and you're like, okay, I got this, right? Like it's third grade math, like I'm good. But then once they get to like 9th and 10th grade advanced level math, you're like I barely passed this the first time. Please don't bring it back up.
Yeah. But that's an interesting topic in and of itself. Like, how do you outsource a lesson like that?
So there are programs that you can do. There's a thing called OutSchool that you can sign the kids up for online classes that are with teachers that do exactly that focused learning. So if he needs an extra hand in trigonometry, we're certainly that's certainly a place to go. We have sourced people within the family that have done that really well, who are engineers and all that kind of stuff, and within the family that were like, can we just borrow your time for just an evening? Like, we just have some questions, and they're always happy to help. So
that's where we get most of it, I would say. It's just family extensions of like, oh, this uncle is good at math, or this best friend that we actually went to school with, or whatever. Yeah, those are the best resources we have.
So.
And then sort of the last topic. I mean, let's go back all the way to the beginning. How did you guys meet?
Slow. High school, really. We go back that far. Yeah.
Wow.
We met freshman year and we started dating sophomore year, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it was
literally
2004, 2005.
Yeah. I think this year we'll be celebrating our 12 years of marriage and 19 years together.
Yeah, something crazy.
Okay.
Something crazy like that. Yeah.
I was just doing the math of when you guys were in high school and thinking about how old I was, but I'm not going to go there. Well,
Did anybody have any questions, Dave? Did any questions come in, or
no?
Ask any questions they're going to ask. I don't care about what it is.
No, I mean, we've had a pretty steady group of people watching, a small group of people watching. So I'm going to take a second here and reward them with our special deal of the week.
That's right.
That'll only be up for the next 24 hours. We have some mobile must-have beanies that have these amazing little LED lights on them as like headlamps. And so if you use, do you actually have one, don't you?
Yeah, Keegan's got one.
I gave mine away last year
I'll see if we can find it.
So
yeah.
But if you use the code MMH special at checkout for the next 24 hours, you will get a free beanie as long as with any purchase, as long as supplies last, which I'm going to guess we've got a few of them.
Yeah, I think we have 100 of them or so.
Yeah. So
I don't know if it can be found, but I'll show it if it comes up.
Yeah, they're great. They come with one sort of coin battery, I think they're called, the little like jewelry battle, and then there's another version. They have another one that you can swap in that is USB rechargeable.
I think we swapped all of them to USB rechargeable ones.
Oh, we did? Nice.
Yeah.
Mine came with both lights, but that makes more sense
Yeah, I
to
think we
swap
took
in
out
the
all the
USB
old
one.
ones and just have the rechargeable ones now.
Yeah,
Cool. Well, yeah, if
cool.
anybody had any questions about like if they're going on the road or any challenges or concerns they've got, we are happy to answer. Oh, okay. We don't have the light, but this is what the beanie is.
Oh, very,
The
yeah.
light, the
You can
light
see where
is
the
for
light
everything.
goes, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's very,
Yeah.
very nicely embroidered and actually really practical and warm and great for being out at night, especially
Yeah.
especially now in New England where it gets dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's free. So put it in,
And
put
it's
your
free.
coupon code in, and get a free hand. You want to try it on? Here, I'll try it on for you.
Oh boy, here comes the cute here comes the thumbnail. Oh, too funny. I love it. Well, since we don't have any questions, I think we can close it out by just saying thank you so much for having us in your home and sharing your kids and your experience with us. We really appreciate that.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you
you're
for
welcome.
having us.
Yeah.
And yeah.
What
Thank
did he
you for
say?
having us. And yeah.
You're gonna add to
I
it.
love it.
Okay.
And I hope the 3D printed coasters come out well. We'll give him a plug. I was going to give him a plug too. So.
I'll post a story on Instagram when they come out so people can
Perfect. The next generation of mobile retailer, right?
see. That's right.
Very fun. Well, thank you all. Thank you both so much, and really lovely to get to talk to you, Chris. I talk to Andy all the time, so I
I know
don't
you're
mind
stuck with
that.
them.
Thanks,
And
Dave. Yeah, this was great.
thanks for sharing your experience. We really appreciate it. And Lynn,
Absolutely.
I agree. Thanks for sharing your family. So we
Yeah,
one comment
absolutely.
from someone who was watching. So
Oh,
appreciate
good.
it.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
cool.
have a wonderful evening and
Oh my goodness.
He's done too.
exactly. That's a good cue right there. So
All right. Thanks, everybody.
well,
Thank you.
and if you guys want to follow Andy and Chris's journey, please go check them out on Where Wild Ones Roam. We'll put the link as a pinned comment on the YouTube stream, so you guys can go follow their blog and follow their travels, and I think that'll be a good way to end.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Sure.
We'd love to have
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
very cool. Well, thank you both very much, and we'll talk to you soon. Andy, I'll probably
All
talk
right.
to you in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, probably.
Very good.